What if I told you some of the most famous psychology studies you learned about in school were completely made up? I'm not talking about small mistakes, I'm talking about researchers literally inventing data in their basement. And hold on, before you think this is just about a few isolated cases, let me show you how deep this rabbit hole really goes. What I'm about to tell you will change how you look at psychology forever. When we think about scientific fraud, we usually picture it happening in secret labs or hidden away in obscure journals. But what I'm going to show you today happened at the world's top universities, was published in the most prestigious journals, and shaped how millions of people think about human behavior. This isn't just about bad scientists, it's about a system that's broken in ways most people never imagine. Today, we're going deep into the world of psychology fraud. We'll look at 5 major cases that rock the field, explore why this keeps happening, and most importantly figure out what it means for everything we think we know about how our minds work. Part 1. The superstar who made it all up. Let's start with what might be the biggest fraud in psychology history, Diederik Stapel. Now, if you're not in academia, you might not know this name. But for years, this guy was like the Brad Pitt of social psychology. Dean of the faculty at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, published in all the top journals, always in the media with amazing new discoveries about human behavior. His studies were incredible. He found that messy train stations made people more racist. That seeing meat made people more aggressive. That company logos could change your entire personality. Every few months, he'd come out with another mind-blowing study that made perfect sense and told us something profound about human nature. Only problem? He made it all up. Every single bit. If you're already feeling your trust issues kick in, hit subscribe. We're just getting started with the trust breaking. Let me walk you through how this worked, because it's fascinating. Most researchers collect data by actually, doing experiments. Not Stapel. He'd sit in his office or basement, open up Excel, and just make up numbers. Perfect, beautiful data that showed exactly what he wanted to find. But here's the really wild part: he didn't just make up a few numbers here and there. He created entire fake research projects. He'd tell his students and colleagues about experiments he never ran at schools that never agreed to participate. He'd hand them perfectly organized spreadsheets filled with completely fabricated data. And nobody caught him for years. Why? Because his data was too perfect. Real data is messy. It has outliers, weird patterns, unexpected results. Stapel's data was clean, perfect, beautiful. Like a movie star with too much plastic surgery, it looked unnatural if you knew what to look for. But nobody was looking. Part 2, the Harvard scandal. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, that's one guy in the Netherlands. Surely this couldn't happen at places like Harvard, right? Wrong. Meet Marc Hauser, Harvard professor and media sensation. While Stapel was studying human behavior, Hauser was doing something even cooler, studying how monkeys think. He claimed to show that monkeys could recognize themselves in mirrors, understand complex patterns, and even show moral behavior. Basically, he was finding that monkeys were way smarter than we thought. The scientific community couldn't get enough. The media loved him. He wrote popular books, gave TED Talks, appeared on TV shows. He was showing us that the gap between humans and animals was smaller than we imagined. It was revolutionary stuff. Then in 2010, something weird happened. His research assistants started noticing problems. When they watched videos of the monkey experiments, they weren't seeing the behaviors Hauser claimed to see. At all. Where Hauser saw monkeys responding to patterns, they saw just monkeys being monkeys. Part 3, the whistle blowing. When Hauser's research assistants first raised concerns, they did exactly what you're supposed to do. They went to the higher-ups at Harvard. And here's where it gets really interesting. At first, nothing happened. Zero. Zilch. Remember, Hauser wasn't just any professor, he was bringing in millions in research grants, making Harvard look good in the media. But these research assistants didn't give up. They kept pushing, documenting everything they saw. Finally, Harvard had to investigate. They looked at study after study, video after video. The result? In 2010, Harvard found Hauser guilty of 8 counts of scientific misconduct. Part 4, the bigger picture. Now, let's zoom out for a minute. Because these aren't just stories about bad scientists, they're stories about a broken system. Think about it like this. Imagine you're a researcher. Your job security, your funding, your whole career depends on publishing exciting new findings. Regular findings. Boring. Negative results. Nobody wants those. You need something spectacular. And here's the kicker: most of the time, nobody's going to check your work. Sure, other scientists might try to replicate your studies years later, but by then you've already got your grants, your promotions, your book deals. Quick CTA break: don't let fraudulent research live rent-free in your head. Hit that subscribe button. Part 5, the replication crisis. But here's where things get really wild. Even when researchers aren't deliberately faking data, a lot of psychology findings might still be wrong. In 2015, a group of researchers did something unprecedented. They tried to replicate 100 published psychology studies. These weren't obscure studies, these were famous findings published in top journals. Guess how many successfully replicated? Just 36. Let that sink in. 2/3 of published findings couldn't be reproduced when other scientists tried them. It's like finding out 2/3 of the recipes in your cookbook don't actually work. Part 6, the lesser-known cases. But wait, there's more. Let me tell you about some cases you probably haven't heard of. Karen Ruggiero at Harvard claimed to find groundbreaking patterns in discrimination. All made up. She resigned in 2004. Michael Lacour claimed to show that short conversations could dramatically change people's minds about gay marriage. Amazing finding. Published in Science, one of the world's top journals. Completely fabricated. Lawrence Sanner published dozens of studies about judgment and decision-making. Turned out he was manipulating his data. Resigned in 2012. Part 7, the real-world impact. Okay, you might be thinking, but does this really matter? They're just psychology studies, right? Wrong again. These findings shape how schools teach, how companies operate, how courts make decisions, how therapists treat patients, how parents raise kids. Think about the Stanford prison experiment, probably the most famous psychology study ever. It supposedly showed that ordinary people become cruel when given power. It's influenced how we think about prisons, schools, workplaces, everything. But guess what? That study had major problems. The guards were coached to be cruel. The prisoners were acting. The whole thing was more like reality TV than science. Part 8, the warning signs. So how can you spot potentially fraudulent research? Here are some red flags. 1. Results that are too perfect. 2. Findings that perfectly match common sense. 3. One researcher finding amazing results nobody else can replicate. 4. Studies that are too good to be true. 5. Researchers who won't share their raw data. Part 9, the solutions. But it's not all doom and gloom. The field is changing. Here's what's happening now. Pre-registration, scientists have to say exactly what they're going to do before they do it. No more changing your hypothesis after you see the data. Open data. More journals are requiring researchers to share their raw data publicly. No more hiding those messy details. Better statistics. The field is moving away from easily manipulated statistical methods. Replication focus. More funding and respect for studies that try to replicate previous findings. Part 10, the future of psychology. Here's the thing: psychology isn't doomed. In fact, all this scrutiny might make it stronger. Think about it like this: psychology is a young science. It's like teenagers going through growing pains. These scandals are pushing the field to mature, to develop better methods, to be more rigorous. Part 11, what this means for you. So what should you do with all this information? First, don't throw out all psychology. That would be like giving up on all medicine because some doctors are frauds. Instead, 1. Be skeptical of dramatic findings. 2. Look for replications, not just single studies. 3. Pay attention to effect sizes, not just whether something works. 4. Remember that human behavior is complicated. If an explanation seems too simple, it probably is. 5. Watch out for people using psychology to sell you things. The story of psychology fraud isn't just about bad scientists or broken systems. It's about something deeper: our desire to find simple answers to complicated questions. We want to believe that human behavior can be easily understood and predicted. But the truth is messier, more complex, and ultimately more interesting than any fraudulent study could suggest. The real lesson here isn't that psychology is fake, it's that understanding human behavior is one of the hardest things we can do. And maybe that's okay. Maybe accepting that complexity is the first step toward real understanding. If this video destroyed your trust issues and rebuilt them stronger, smash that subscribe button. Your brain deserves the truth.